Welcome to the SeaGlass Technology Podcast. In each episode, we'll talk with different technology experts on how your business can run faster, easier, safer, and more cost-effectively. Let's find out what's new and find out what works.
Thank you for joining us at the SeaGlass Technology Podcast. My name is Robert Chojnowski, and I'm one of the managing partners of SeaGlass Technology. And I'd like to introduce our guest today, the Channel Sales Director of Net2Phone, based out of Newark, New Jersey, Alan Borck. How are you, Alan?
Hey, great. Thanks, Rob. I'm excited to be here.
Good, and happy to have you. So I think we're going to talk a little bit today about, maybe some of the things that we learned in 2020 through the pandemic and the mass migration to getting employees productive, working from home or in some other remote capacity when, the world was pretty much shut down. Anything you want to touch on there?
Yeah, well, so the first thing I want to tell you is that when just preparing to get on today and have this conversation with you, just the preamble was that since we're so connected today to technology, and so that this talk wasn't interrupted by all kinds of ringing, I had to literally shut down a bunch of different apps, my IP phone, my Microsoft Teams instance that I run where that would ring, just 5 different things that could ring at any moment. So it took me about 5 minutes to get ready by doing that. So I think, yeah.
That's interesting because I did exactly the same thing. Everything was in do not disturb and, turn the volume off. Right. So, right. But, here we are. And, I think a few things that we've learned over the course of the pandemic and certainly in 2020 was the ability or the necessity even to stay connected to our customers virtually, right? We were not in a position where we can get out there and go to face-to-face meetings, which I, for one, really miss, right? I miss going for coffee. I miss having face-to-face meetings, but, this is, at least for the time being, the new normal, right? We'll see what 2021 100%. Brings and we'll go from there.
Right.
So I guess just in line with technology and some of the offerings that, maybe Net2Phone has, I mean, what have you guys noticed, in terms of your customer base and how they've had to make a transition and maybe where you fit in?
Just even starting and talking about, and I'll go to me personally, right? So my job function is, as you said, as channel sales director for Net2Phone. So I work with channel sales managers that are geographically located. And my job until the pandemic started was to, spend some time maybe remote, maybe working remote from my home or from my home office, but spending more time in front of my with my channel managers, in front of our channel partners, and in front of their customers, which are our mutual customers. And so a lot of traveling, a decent amount of traveling and just getting out there and being face to face. And to your point, I'm a big believer in that people like to deal with people, not just an email or a proposal or something like that. I think that people want to have that connection. And here we are. I guess it was, I want to say probably March, right? And last trip I made was to visit with a channel manager in the Tampa, Florida area. Everything was fine. Flew out there. There was some talk about this pandemic that was in China and had started to move to Europe and things like that. And I traveled to Tampa and I saw a couple people in the airport that had masks on. It seemed like there was an increase of that. And flew in, spent a few days there, spent days with our partners and with customers, flew back, I think it was on a Thursday, and then the world shut down the following week. I mean, literally on a dime, everything changed.
Right.
And, no longer am I in front of I shouldn't say that. To your point, I'm in front of our partners and I'm in front of my channel managers and I'm in front of our customers, and we're using the technology, frankly, that we provide with audio, video, web conferencing, And just being connected, one of our products, it just coincidentally that we launched was a audio video web conferencing application called Huddle. And we happened to have launched it just a few months before the pandemic started. And we made a decision early on that we were going to provide that as a free service to all of our customers throughout the pandemic, even though that was going to be a paid subscription-based service. And we're still providing it for free to all of our customers to be able to, to enable our customers, our partners, and ourselves to communicate and connect with everybody else.
Wow, that's awesome. And how has it been pretty well received by customers and partners?
Yeah, it's interesting because it came out and it was tagged as beta, but we said we needed to roll it out there. I think one of the unique things about it is that it's completely web-based, so there's no application to download it, unless you're going to use it on a smartphone, and we have an Android and an iOS application that you can download. But if you're going to connect, using Huddle, so all you have to do is get to a browser, a Chrome browser, and log in, and just click on the link, and voila, you're there, you're connected. And you could be literally anywhere in the world at any time of day or night. Very similar to our regular hosted PBX offering as well. Same idea, same concept.
Right. Yeah. So that's an example of one of the tools that are out there for all of these organizations or companies that they're kind of stuck in a remote environment. I'm going to kind of take a step back a little bit. You said something about how the world changed on a dime, and that reminded me of a lease that I had that was expiring, and then it was time for me to renew the lease. And I couldn't go car shopping, but the car dealers were open. So what I ended up doing was doing a virtual, I guess it was actually like a FaceTime, and the salesperson at the car dealer just kind of walked around the car and showed me all the features of the car. It was pretty amazing. I don't think the sales guy liked it so much, but it was, right?
Right.
So that's a real example of the way things changed on us, and some of the technology that are put in the hands of people that would have never really had any reason to use it prior to this.
Oh yeah, I mean really 100% across the board. I mean technology, just the ability or the capability for people to become remote. It's like all of a sudden it was put on. You use the term put on steroids. I mean all of a sudden everybody was running towards this type of technology. We saw a tremendous increase, in interest on how do we become remote? How do we do that?
Was that pre-COVID or just?
Here's the thing, right? And you and I have both been in the technology arena for a long time. I think something that kind of changed that made, and our core business is hosted PBX, taking your phone system and making it a virtual phone system in the cloud. And I come from the phone system world, the hardware, where you would have a closet with metal in there, and you needed technicians to come and do remote work, or not do remote work, but actually do on-site work. And I think some of the things that had changed already is that the bandwidth that everybody had, including not just corporations, not just companies, but individuals, had just dramatically increased over time. And the technology got to the point where the features and the functions that could be provided in a cloud environment, I wouldn't say they necessarily just mimicked what was in a premise type of an environment, but they, in some ways they far exceeded that. So I think that technology had changed over time, and I think that was prior to the pandemic.
Right.
What the pandemic did is it really took everything and it said, okay, now we're in a situation where yesterday I was sitting at my desk. I had my tuna sandwich for lunch. As a matter of fact, I only ate half of it and I wrapped it up, and it's still sitting there. And now it's today, and I can't even get into the office, and that thing's just going to, start turning colors soon. So all of a sudden you're in a situation where you can't even get to, in some cases you couldn't even get back into an office to pick up your technology.
Right.
We had a company, it was one of the public television organizations in the Northeast. that had transitioned from a premise-based phone system. There are about 300 users in a couple of locations, one main location with over 200 users. And they had 6 months earlier, they had moved from a premise-based phone system to our cloud solution, our hosted PBX solution. And we're actually in the process of doing a white paper on this, where the head of IT for this organization was just like, he said, this saved our lives, because he was able to take 200 people and make them remote workers literally overnight. Over 1 day period, he was able to transition 200 people. He had 100, and I don't know if it was exactly 200, but there was one that didn't work, and it was a home technology issue that they were running into with their own home router, which was obviously fixed. But we were able to make them capable literally overnight like that.
Yeah, and that sounds like the type of story we're hearing over and over, right? So, and what about the users that couldn't take their technology home? So, were they using their cell phones? Were they forwarding numbers?
Yeah, so for sure. Everybody, at least initially, people were doing that. And again, we're in a scenario or a situation where, with what we provide, we're going to ship. If they want what we call IP phones, if they want IP phones, we can ship them already programmed to a customer. It could be to a home user. But initially, we can give them the capability to literally log into a portal, which gives them that presence, that capability that when somebody dials their extension, it's going to ring on whatever computer they're logged into. And it's going to give them the features and the functions and the auto attendance and the call groups and the ring groups. And they're going to be able to change their hours of operation and the greetings that they listen to. So yes, it was certainly, I think it was almost like a shock to the system initially, but then people had to figure it out. And I think one of the things that we saw that was seen in general in our business is this capability to now, okay, we weren't necessarily planning on doing this right now, or maybe we had been, maybe already implemented it. But now we're in a situation where I had your solution in the office, but now I'm at home. What can I do? It's a matter of guiding people through how to use the same technology that they may have already, invested in. One of the beauties of hosted PBX is that there's really not an upfront investment, but the ability to just take that technology and become remote workers literally almost instantly.
Right. So interestingly enough, as we're talking about remote workers, Gartner did a survey back in April, and 50% of the companies that they surveyed said that 81% of the employees were working remote. What they're predicting is that post-COVID, when all is said and done, there'll still be 41% of the total workforce that's going to be working remote.
Right.
That was a prediction from Gartner. So it seems like, and I'm seeing it, right, from our perspective with our customers, that the work from home model has been adopted, right? To, even though we're still dealing with COVID, right? Work from home model's been adopted, and the technology that people or companies are using, right? So everything about accountability for employees, and then the employees get to enjoy a better work-life balance. They're a little bit more productive. We've seen an increase as well with the Microsoft Teams adoption, right? So, and I know that Net2Phone has a pretty good relationship with Microsoft Teams. Maybe you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because there was a statistic that I saw early on when I say early on today, that means in the beginning of the pandemic, right? A couple of months into it. I mean,
sure.
I'm going to digress for a second. So I have a daughter who was expecting at the time her second child. And my wife said to her and my son-in-law, don't worry about it. It's March. You're not due until May. This is going to be all finished, gone. It's not going to be a problem. Well, fast forward, we have a 6-month-old granddaughter who was born in COVID in a crazy environment. Going back to your point about Microsoft Teams. So early on, I saw a statistic that they had gotten to the point where there were 75 million daily users of Microsoft Teams. And it was an incredible statistic that on a daily basis, 75 million people, individuals, logged on to Microsoft Teams and used it. Well, I just did a query on that, and I just recently heard it, and there's some different statistics here, but I'm looking at one on quote-unquote Google search that says 115 million daily, and I had heard actually it exceeds 125 million daily users logging on. And that's not subscriptions. That's how many people are just logging on daily to use Microsoft Teams.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible growth. I mean, you think about it, it's incredible growth. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen that. And you're right. Users are way different than subscriptions, right? Because everybody that subscribes to Office 365 gets the Teams license. They may not even know they have it.
Right.
So the fact that they're saying users, people that are actually logging on, so that's a huge statistic.
Right. No, I was going to say, so that was a big initiative for us, was to go and integrate with Microsoft Teams. So we rolled out. It's now. It actually was pre-COVID, but there's been a tremendous enhancement. We have what we call native Teams integration, where we can be the provider of phone service to Teams users. We call that direct routing, or Microsoft calls it direct routing. Or we can actually take our hosted PBX platform and have that be the underlying call control with all the features and functions with a very tight integration into Microsoft Teams.
Right. And so has that been pretty well received with customers? I mean, what's the feedback on that?
The feedback is tremendous. And what we are seeing from just a business standpoint is Net2Phone historically, if you go back a few years, Net2Phone was very well received in what we call the small to low end, medium sized businesses. So really the what today you might even term almost transactional businesses, where they're doing 5 seats of 5 users or 10 or 20 or 30 or 40. With Microsoft Teams, what we're seeing is we're working with organizations that have 1,000 users, 3,200 users, 800 users, and certainly the ones that have 50 and 100 and 150 users.
Right.
We're seeing, and there's just an adoption of this literally throughout. I mean, from that 5-user organization all the way up to, it was already adopted in enterprise space. But certainly I would say really where it has moved to is to that medium-sized business space, or even the small business space.
Right. For sure. We've seen that ourselves.
Right. Sure.
Migrating to Teams calling plans, right, through Net2Phone. When we do Office 365 or Exchange migrations, right, to the cloud or to Office 365. So, interesting stuff, and it works, right? That's really, at the end of the day, is now every device that you have access to Teams on becomes it's just another level of the communications that 100%. You have, from being able to chat across the platform and call you internally, as well as receive and make customer phone calls.
Correct. I mean, all the features and functions, and listen, Microsoft, that's where they live, is in that application space and connectivity, and like you said, the chat. And what we're doing is we're just layering on to that, just tying in all of the features and the functions that we provide on the voice side, and not only the voice side, but we also have texting from our platform, SMS and MMS messaging from our platform, and it just all ties together. And today, the technology takes that to where texting used to be a thing where you basically, if you wanted to text, it was usually amongst friends because you're texting from your cell phone. So you're giving out your cell phone. Today, we're texting from our business phone lines. So whether it be the main line or the accounting department or the service department of a car dealership or whatever it is, we're able to provide the customers that functionality to be able to communicate not only via voice, but via text and SMS and MMS messaging.
That's interesting. So what are some of the applications? Is it like contact center applications that are using texting, or is it just in Well, I mean, I guess one of the applications was from a car dealer service department, right?
Right, exactly.
So
yeah,
that would
yeah.
be, yeah.
And it's really, it's just, hey, I want to communicate with whoever my, the stakeholders are, whether they be my employees or my customers or my vendors or whatever it is. We're just seeing an adoption across the board. I think what's helping that adoption is just what I said, where the president of the company doesn't have to give out his personal cell phone anymore. He can give out the company's main phone number as his texting number.
Right.
But we've actually taken it one step further, and we will provide customers with what we call a snippet of code that they can use to put it on, if they've got their own website, which most companies do. Just put it on your website, and now, again, whether you're medical or legal or real estate, it doesn't matter what vertical you're in. You have that capability to give them a chat widget that ties right into your business phone numbers and right into our platform.
That's interesting. So what does that look like from, I assume that goes to maybe a customer service desk. And where I'm going with this is statistics, right? So reporting, those kind of things, maybe having an archive of those messages. Are those things that would be relevant?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And this is, I would say it's relatively new. So so to speak, the sky's the limit. We're going to be certainly continuing. And the way, actually, I'll step back for a second, the way Net2Phone. So Net2Phone is a subsidiary of a company called IDT. IDT is a New York Stock Exchange or a public company, about $1.5 billion in revenue. So a strong organization overall. And very healthy because we're in the technology field. IDT is a global carrier. So again, areas where we've seen significant growth. We've got our own platform. We're not beholden to another organization or any other organization for licensing and features and functions and things like that. So we provide all of that. That goes to the messaging piece. And the other part that goes to the messaging piece is that we've grown this organization both organically and through acquisition. Organically, we've grown geographically. I work with people throughout the country. I have a counterpart on the West Coast. So between the two of us, we handle the entire country. But we have a presence in a lot of different locations. Through acquisition, one of the acquisitions that we made is we actually acquired one of the premier voice over IP providers in Canada to get into that market. But one of the other areas is we saw this messaging, this texting and SMS and MMS messaging as a great business solution. And so instead of growing that or trying to license something out there, we acquired a company that was based in Florida called Live Ninja. That was a messaging company. That's why we're able to provide that messaging those applications. It really, I think your question was, where does it apply? It applies everywhere. It's the receptionist who's messaging the guy who's supposed to be delivering something, or the people who are out to lunch. And again, obviously not today, but when they get back to the office, the president who doesn't want to give out his cell phone number when he's texting can message from a business phone number. It doesn't even have to be his direct number. He can just decide, what number do I want this message to come from? Reaching out and being able to touch our customers, our providers, our vendors, our whoever we communicate with in many different ways is really where this technology is taken.
Okay. So, and that's texting and that's web chat, it sounds like, as well.
Right.
And what about integrations to other messaging applications that organizations may already be using, like Slack, for instance?
Right. We're integrated with Slack. Okay. Some of the higher end, we are integrated with Slack. And from a messaging standpoint, that's a big initiative going on right now, is that those integrations on the messaging pieces from in general, Slack, CRM integrations. I mean, that's one of the things that we really focus on is what are companies using today and how can we tie it all together?
Right.
So whether it be Salesforce, where we have an integration to Salesforce, we have an integration to Zoho, which is one of the newer, but probably the most sought after CRMs today, because I think it's relatively inexpensive CRM. In general, that's a key focus of us going down the road, is really these integrations in general, and specifically to the applications like messaging and you name it.
Right. So, that sounds really awesome. So let's pretend a business owner or a business leader, and I'm used to having a phone system in a closet someplace in the building, probably under the stairs.
Yeah, right.
And it's collecting dust, and the door open, and I have a fan blowing in there so things don't blow up. And I decide I'm going to continue my digital migration and integrate UCaaS into my environment. What should I be looking for? What kind of questions should I ask? I don't know what I don't know.
Right. So
how do we get started?
Right. So, at the end of the day, I mentioned earlier, I've been doing this for quite some time. To me, it's really not about the actual technology. It's about, hey, what are my business needs? I'm a customer. What am I trying to accomplish at the end of the day? I learned a long time ago from a customer that I tried to, and this was back in the premise world, and I was selling contact center solutions, and I tried to shoehorn somebody into a solution that just wasn't right. And this gentleman who was, at the time, I was a lot younger, but he was younger than me. And he said, I'm good at what I do. I know my business. He was actually in the collection business. He said, I know my business. He said, when I bring somebody like, and we developed a great relationship. We had already had it one, but it just grew from there. He said, when I bring somebody in, I don't want to bring me a solution, whatever it is. It's a telephone solution. It's contact center. I'm not bringing you in to re-engineer my business. I know my business. What I want you to do is I want you to bring me the solution that is going to make me more effective and more efficient at what I already know how to do. And I think that's what, if you're looking for, if somebody's out there and they're saying, okay, I want to get into UCaaS. There's a lot of providers out there. Well, obviously something is, important things today are financially strong. There's a lot of providers that are hurting, especially with the pandemic. There's a lot of layoffs. We, in our world, we've been growing. I've actually hired, I think, more than a half a dozen people that I have not met face to face. And, that's never the case. And I've been working with them for months now. Obviously face to face over video chat, we do. Going back to that, it's, hey, if somebody is going to just list off all these features and functions and we do this and we do that and we integrate and we do that, and that's the presentation, to me, that's a red flag.
Right.
What I want to do is I want to listen, or I want my channel managers to work with our partners, and they want to listen to their customers and know their business, know what they're doing, know how they're doing it today. And how can we bring this technology that we've already have, but how can we bring it to them to help them? Not to make it just, hey, throw a lot of stuff against the wall and see what sticks, but how can we help them do what they do and do it better and do it more effectively and more efficiently?
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's really a great approach. So, Alan, I couldn't agree more with that. I think that our industry has been around long enough, and it's not phones, right? It's unified communication as a service, right?
Exactly.
I always tell clients when they're looking for a UCaaS solution to just take it for granted that the phone is going to work. Right. So, right. But what are your business needs? Right. So, and that just plays into, the entire technology solution.
Yes.
Right. So it's not all about voice these days, right? It's about communication and communicating.
Yeah. And it's funny because, you and I both know this. We used to, talk about the buttons on the phone, right? And, it's important because, there's still office workers who are going to have buttons and they want to see presence. They want to see busy, BLFs, busy lamb fields of who's on the phone, even if they're across the world, right? But,
right.
It used to be about that device, and I could have a wireless handset, and I could have a wireless headset attached, and I could walk away. But it was that device was like, hey, I like the way it looks, and can you put my logo on it? Today, it's so far away from that because we communicate today in so many different ways. Again, whether I'm on my communicating, and again, from the same extension, and whether it's the app on my cell phone, or I'm twinned to my cell phone where my calls are coming to my actual cell phone, or it's Microsoft Teams, the dial pad in Teams, or my own dial pad in my application. there's just so many different ways that we connect. And that's just on the voice side. But you're right. The other applications of how we communicate.
For sure.
Of texting and messaging and all of that stuff.
Yeah, so this was great. I think we could probably talk for another hour if we wanted to. So I think we'll end it here. I really want to thank Alan for coming today and, giving us your professional insight. It was really enlightening. And if anybody would like to, inquire further, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'd be happy to make an introduction to Alan, and you can visit their website at net2phone.com, net2phone.com. Thanks again.
Oh, my pleasure. Look forward to having this conversation again sometime. Sure.
Me too. Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the SeaGlass Technology Podcast. For more information about what was discussed in this episode, or if you have any other questions about technology for your business, contact us at 212-201-0006 or visit our website at SeaGlassTechnology.com.